I had to break some bad news, and it's always very difficult having to break bad news and tell a family something that nobody wants to hear it. And that's part of the job, isn't it? Having to tell people that things are not fine and watch them go through the very natural response and the emotions, and it has a massive impact. I think as I've had children, it's become more difficult breaking bad news, and not actually breaking the bad news. I think with time you do get better. I dare say get used to it at times. But the emotion of going through, I always feel really sad going home, and I sit there at dinner and I look at my own children, and you just wonder, I wish I'm not on the other side of that conversation. And you really appreciate your family, your kids, when you're having to deal with that. And I think that is part of the job. And I guess it's really normal. It's not something that we talk about. How do you feel when you're having to give bad news? Do you think about your own kids? I mean, I remember when I had my first son and I came back from maternity leave, and there was a child that was brought into resus who was probably a toddler. Dad had made a hot coffee, freshly made, black, was just on the edge of the counter. Dad had turned his back to do something, and his child had sort of waved his arms, hit the coffee, and it spilt all over them and sustained really serious burns. And I remember it coming in, the child was crying, the burn looked really nasty, the father is in tears of guilt. And before having my son, I didn't really react with emotion. Very much, job at hand. This is my job. This is what I'm going to do. Let's fix it. Very get on type thing. Not being nasty with the situation. It's just that element, that layer of I can truly be in this person's shoes was not there because I didn't have children. But now I had the idea when I was dealing with it. As much as I was dealing with it, I don't think there was a problem with how I dealt with it. I was just having flashback. No, it's not flashbacks. It's just visions of, what if that was me and my child had done this? How would I feel? What would I do? What are the long-term, the scarring and the long-term consequence of a burn? And it made me hesitant for a few moments, and then you sort of click back into role and you get on. But you do think about it. And I think, when you every time I have to break bad news, I always go home and give my kids a hug. I always spend a little bit more time with them. Very grateful that they are well. But I'm sure we all, as doctors, medics, nurses, anyone within healthcare, when you're dealing with children who've gone through unfortunate situations, you reflect, don't you? And, again, having to break the news and tell them was emotionally difficult.